All right. Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome back to more anti-media radio. And things are getting exciting here in the news. And so we're going to be covering kind of what's going on with the whole memo gate thing that's going on, which we predicted a while back would eventually come to pass. We're going to do a little talking about something we've been talking about a lot on the show recently, which is Facebook's new kind of algorithmic censorship and how that's affecting alternative media. And it's even affecting anti-media. So we're having to kind of steer into some new directions, which we think ultimately will be a good thing, but it's definitely a strange time to be in alternative media, because essentially what we've seen is the discourse over fake news vis-a-vis Russia is being used as a pretense to crack down on any undesirable narratives, and to even crack down on distribution platforms for them. Not only do they disagree with fake news, not only do they disagree with ideas that are antithetical to them, they don't think those ideas should even exist. Sounds like fascism. As always, we will be joined by a wise man, DB Schwartz, and he may be with us already. I'm not sure. DB, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, buddy.
All right, cool.
Somehow.
Yeah. So this is the first show back with both of us in like a month, I think. So
yeah, I actually have to work a regular job now, like as far as my schedule goes, and so 11 o'clock's late for me to end when I have to wake up at 6. So,
man, I know how it goes, and I appreciate you staying up with me. I actually usually get up at 5 these days, so yeah, this is pretty much the last thing I do before I go to bed. But it's it's 3 hours earlier where I am, right? Or two.
Yeah, it's 2, right? Yeah. So, but yeah, it's 10 o'clock here, and it's going to be 11, and then I'll get 7 hours of sleep, which is fine. But
yeah,
that's fine. But then I drag ass towards the middle of the day, and then, well, in my job, when you drag ass, you basically don't make money. So,
is this a permanent thing now, or is this new? A new change to your schedule, or?
Well, I changed my broker, so basically it's like starting over fresh. I mean, obviously still have all the people I've dealt with and a lot of people, but yeah, I mean, it's like I moved from one part of town to the opposite as far as where I actually go to work. I live in the middle. My old job, I didn't have to go in, which of course I didn't, and that's not good for me. So this one makes me come in. And that's fine. That's what I needed. So, but yeah, it's like a total change. I mean, I could tell you, man, people even talk differently on one end of the southern end of St. Paul to now the northwestern end of Minneapolis. So it's really funny, and it's kind of fun actually to talk to people, and they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, "California." They're like, "Yeah, you sound like you are."
Yeah. That's funny, man. So yeah,
but
people,
yeah, Super Bowl's here. Super Bowl's here.
Sacrifices for this show, it's not like we get paid for this thing. We're not making $100. We're not making 25 cents for this. We're doing it out of the goodnesses of our hearts, and we're tired as shit, and life sucks. Or life goes through those ups and downs, but we're here because we want to be, and we want to talk about.
Yeah.
And
we're on the verge here, aren't we? I mean, honestly, me and Nick, and then you came on, Jake, like 2 years ago? I don't even know how long you've been doing it with us.
It seems a lot longer than that, but it's only been like a couple years, yeah.
And then I think Nick and I were doing this for a couple years before that with SM, and it's been funny to see how we've been on average 6 months to a year ahead of the popular consciousness with many things. I mean, there's still things that we are accepting of that most people couldn't even fathom, and it would probably just really ruin their days. And I guess that's just part of the process of being ahead on things. But the things we were talking about, I mean, they're coming to fruition, because China, the rise of China, the natural organic rise of China as the economic superpower of the world, which it was always that way. And the Opium Wars were the only thing that derailed them. And it derailed them for a couple centuries, and now, I mean, short of World War III, they're not going to be derailed again. And, you know, it's okay for that sphere to be the biggest sphere. You know, they're not an invasionary force. They've been invaded so many times that at this point, I don't think they wouldn't be able to convince their own people to go attack and invade somebody, because it's ingrained in them how horrible that is, and how you know, totally innocent people are always the ones that bear the most brunt when that happens. So I think the things we've been talking about, without any conspiratorial bent at first, they're starting to take place right now, and it's just interesting to see how people react. You know, becoming second banana is not a bad thing. We have about 1/5 of the population. So say we only got to keep 1/4 of the world's economy, we're only, like 1/24 of the world's population? So I think we'd still be living pretty good. I'm not too worried about the future. In fact, I'm kind of hopeful.
Well, good. Yeah, we usually are kind of early adopters of, you know, some pretty fringe ideas. Of course, it's a numbers game. We're out on the hill on a bunch of different things, so it's kind of inevitable that we're going to be right. You know, even a stop clock is right twice a day, right? But no, I'll give us more credit than that. You know, we definitely are looking at a lot of outlying data, and we're putting things together on a lot of trends. And of course, the newest one is one, you know, we've been talking about the deep state for a long time. In fact, I'm pretty sure I was talking about the deep state before even fucking Alex Jones was blathering about it on InfoWars. And then everyone became all of a sudden very quickly obsessed with this idea of the deep state, or this kind of extrajudicial alliance of different intelligence agencies and, you know, people behind the scene, the shadow government, if you will. And then all of a sudden, Trump started talking about it. And the deep state became the way that the kind of new right started referring to swamp. And then we saw that whole hashtag go crazy of drain the swamp. So what we've seen is effectively, we've seen the Trump administration and Trump loyalists kind of co-opt the deep state narrative, which really just drives me nuts. I can't tell you how angry it makes me. They've also co-opted the whole don't trust the media thing, because, of course, clearly the entire brand of the anti-media is based on distrusting the narrative of the mainstream news. And we've all put a lot of work into meticulously, methodically showing that of all the things we talk about, that one is the least of a conspiracy theory. It's actually more fact now, because you can actually show, if you go on PolitiFact, there's actually a fairly mainstream site, you can look at the different news agencies and see how much they lie, you know? So in many ways, the Trump administration has very much co-opted many conspiratorial things and other conspiracy facts, you know, I personally think they're very wrong on. But on those two, they, again, stop clock is right twice a day. And on those two, the Trump administration happens to be right, which is, one, that there absolutely is a deep state, and two, that there actually absolutely is a corrupt, lying mainstream media, which is actually a part of the deep state. And they are very good at latching on
But it's a little more layered than that, because
of course,
it's not so much that they're a part of the same thing. It's that there's kingpins who own these media companies, and they are typically, we can even call them legacy members of the private intelligence corporations that masquerade as part of a public apparatus, and they're absolutely not. I think it's important. It's an important distinction to make that there's only one public intelligence agency, which is the NSA. The rest of them are all private. I know it's hard to wrap your mind around it, but the CIA, the FBI, they're private. They're all private. They're corporations. So the only government entity is the NSA. It's kind of crazy, but when you think about it, it makes sense too, because you really want to be absolved of some of the stuff going on that those other things do in the name of what you were hoping was country, and it turns out, at least for the last 5-6 decades, sorry, maybe even longer than that, it's been for private interests. So probably more like 100 years. So, when the American people figure this out, they're going to get mad because stuff like your income tax didn't go where they said it did. They're going to get irate when they find out what CPS really does and what it is. And that's like the worst of the worst. I know we can imagine what happens when kids go missing. So when all these things come to light, and they are, dude, there's just not a way to stop an avalanche when it's like built so much. And I don't know if you saw, but they arrested 500 people yesterday in a ring in California. It was in LA for child sex trafficking, and that's the avalanche there. So that's just going to lead to the breakdown of Hollywood, in my opinion. It's going to be a slow process. It'll take like a year, but it's going to make the Weinstein thing look like nothing. So it's on the way.
That's something we've been talking about, and I've been kind of wondering about that, because it's hard to believe that with all of the Me Too stuff going on, it's kind of hard to believe that more attention hasn't come on to the child sex trafficking.
There was just nothing to go on. It was what they needed to do first was bust, the regular trafficking rings, which are, and a lot of them are people that are being taken by these coyotes or jackals, told they're going to be brought across here and let go, and they never are. They're like kept in chains here. Like there's literally people living in and it's all over the place. It's rampant. So that was the first ring. Once they broke that, it led into the prostitution with very young girls, like 15. And then it led down further the road down into the actual kids. And once it gets further down that road to, worse, like babies and stuff, and killing kids and babies and things like that, and rituals and occult crap, it's going to make the American people go insane and out of their minds, and they can't take it. So we're seeing a small bite-sized piece by piece kind of, it's on the periphery now. People are, when you tell people there's these things happening, like a couple years ago, they'd think you're crazy. Now they're just going to kind of give you the side eye. I mean, they're still disbelieving of it, but they kind of understand if it's being said this much, there's got to be like some smoke to the fire, or some fire to the smoke, I should say. Yeah,
it's amazing how many different layers you have to break down until people will start to believe a conspiracy theory. I mean, you really have to do almost like deprogram people from their regularly scheduled program,
Well, we went through the process, Jake. It's just, I guess, for whatever reason, maybe because when we were young, we went to the library and read about Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster and crap. And, when we got older and the internet was there, we actually looked into, like, what's really going on in the world. I remember reading about this stuff, like, 20 years ago. So, I mean, that's how long I've kind of been processing this stuff in baby bites. And The movie that really opened my eyes was like in 2008. I remember when Obama did the bailout after we voted him in, or we thought we did, or however that worked. And I was like, all right, this guy's no different. That was kind of crazy. This was a big sham. This movie Zeitgeist, I think that was what really opened my eyes. Like they brought it out right after he got voted in, and then he did the bailout. And Peter Joseph's like, wait a minute, dude, this guy's like the biggest actor ever. And that really woke me up. So now I'm going on 10 years of actually having like internet access and learning about all this stuff as much as I can stomach in a day. And we're just ahead, man. There's some people that are still not, they have no cognizant idea of what's going on at all. Well, like a decade ahead, 2 decades ahead.
And even just accepting, I mean, there are people that literally just will not even accept that their beloved party leaders are corrupt. I was just talking with my mom earlier today about just how difficult it's going to be for, there's a lot of Democrats in for a very, very rude awakening in the next couple weeks. And they're still in denial right now online. If you go on to Huffington Post, if you go on to CNN, if you go on to a lot of liberal websites, there's still a lot of people who are just like, well, this is just all about ending the Mueller Russia investigation. They're still unable to comprehend that their beloved President Obama engaged in something that's probably going to turn out being considerably worse than Watergate. And that's what this memo thing is all about and we're going to, you've been talking about it for a couple weeks now. And, collectively we've been kind of all bitching about the surveillance, state for a while. And, the irony, of course, is that Pelosi and Schiff just both helped get the FISA extension passed, not 2 weeks ago. And now the FISA really could be the undoing of the whole party. And for most of you who are listening probably now know what this memo talk is all about. This is a memo compiled by Nunes, who I'm going to have to get back about how he actually acquired this information. But essentially, they believe they have pretty direct information showing that the Obama Department of Justice used pretty shady intelligence to get a FISA warrant to surveil the Trump campaign and continued surveilling him even after he was in office. And, how they're going to be able to spin this to make that not sound as bad as it sounds, I think what's going to happen is there are people that are just so partisan that they really seriously just instinctively immediately reject something that's against their party. And with this particular situation, though, you have the Republicans control both houses and the presidency, and they're going to be able to make this be as visible as they want. And if there's direct evidence showing that Obama illegally passed on surveillance information from the Trump campaign to the Clinton campaign for use in a federal election, that's pretty bad. And it could be worse than that. We don't know. But it sounds like that's at least what's going to be in there. Now, what are you hearing? This could come out tomorrow. Or what are you hearing? I mean, do you think it's going to be worse than that?
Dude, there's a lot of different avenues of information. So depends what you think's real and what's not, and what's a LARP and what's fake, and if the mainstream has any angle at all on it. So, I think what's going on right now, I think the entire reason the memo wasn't released was, one, that there's a lot of people that are going to be easier to just let them resign. Yeah. So they're going to do that. They're going to kind of give them a window, and they can either announce they're not going to seek re-election, or they can just immediately resign if it's real bad. Like if they're attached to to any of these.
Well, like McCabe already.
Yeah. Like McCabe basically just he did well. What he tried to do is keep his pension. I'm not sure it'll work for him, but we'll see.
He had like a $1.3 million pension he was trying to hold on.
Yeah, we'll see if he can keep it. I don't know, but I don't think so if they get him for what could be amount or tantamount to being a traitor. So countries still exist, people. I know there's a lot of people out there that are communist globalist shills that may be listening, but countries still exist and borders still exist because tribes still exist. And as much as we want to live in a unipolar world where we're off looking around in space, that's not going to happen in our lifetimes, and nationalism is always a better alternative than tyrannical authoritarian globalism, which is what they had kind of going. And Trump threw a wrench in that. So I don't know, dude. I don't know what the answer is as far as how this is going to affect the government at large. I think that's kind of why they're delaying it. I think they're doing a lot of negotiating.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit going on behind closed doors right now because they delayed this thing and delayed it, and now it's just blatant. Now it's blatant that they're delaying it because
the two agencies I think that'll really just be offered up are the FBI and the DOJ. From what I'm just reading, the CIA really didn't have much to do with it, but. We'll see, though, if any of their tech wizards were involved in bugging. I know that the White House itself was bugged from what I've been reading, and that's why Trump moved to the Trump Tower. Then they found that was bugged, so he had to move down to Mar-a-Lago for everything important and do all his talking on the golf course. So for all you little ninnies that are bitching about him being on the golf course all the time, that's because the fruitcakes have bugged everywhere else he's been. So there you go, you idiots.
Wow.
But
I was talking earlier to my parents about it. I'm in such a weird position right now because, as you know, I'm not a Trump fan. I wasn't a supporter. I didn't vote for him. While I have agreed with some of his policies, for example, withdrawing from TPP and a couple other ones, actually. One was even recent. One by nationalizing the 5G network. I actually think it'd be a good idea. But anyway, despite the fact that I've agreed with him on a couple issues, in general, I think he is a corrosive force for the social fabric of society. However, having said that, and that said, I cannot reconcile the jubilance I feel at someone walking in there and literally just bitch slapping the deep state. Just walking in there and just saying like, oh, you think you can stop me? Okay, well bring it. Come and do it. Do what you're going to do, but I'm going to fuck your shit up. And that's what he's doing right now. And we are seeing the ancestral generation of the people who killed Kennedy just basically straight up being told, stop me if you can. Because he is straight up going to, it's looking like he is going to illuminate a lot of really messed up, shady stuff that's been going on with this memo. And look, shortly before Kennedy's end, he said he was going to scatter the CIA to the winds. And a lot of people think that played a part in what happened to him. And now you have Trump essentially threatening the FBI and the Department of Justice. We haven't seen any, I mean, literally, those are the parentheses. We have not seen anything like this since Kennedy. So while I'm not a Trump supporter... And
ironically enough, what's with freaking spit-face Joe last night?
What's that?
Spit-face Kennedy III. I mean, freaking drool baby.
Yeah, well,
what a pathetic retort. That's all I can say. The Democratic Party, for all the flaws of the GOP, they're not going to go down in flames anywhere near as hard as the DNC is. If that's all they got, they're going to lose in 2018, man.
My thought on that was I don't really care about the fact that he used a lot of chapstick. What I thought it was just really unbelievable that in their counter to Trump, they picked a white, rich, dynastic young man, which essentially represents everything that they say Trump represents, a corrupt, dynastic, rich family, and a white man. I mean, it's just like they're so bad at messaging, it's just almost laughable. They have no sense of theater or strategy, or they are just lost. They have
there's no genuine person left that actually is working for progressive values. I can't think of one. I cannot think of anybody in the limelight or anyone with any kind of pull.
I think Bernie Sanders would be just about the only one I can think of.
Yeah, but I mean, if he's going to parrot the party line and toe it, it's obvious that they put hook and sinker into the guy, and he's got really nothing left anymore. I mean, as far as him running in 2020, they're not going to let him.
He
was sitting with the Democrats last night.
He looks awful. He looks
awful.
He looks 10 years older than the campaign.
Dude, if you know anything about how intelligence agencies work, when Pied Pipers go out of line like he did, he was just supposed to lead a percentage of people that were on the far left to Hillary. What he did instead was he galvanized her. He made a wedge in the party. He delivered the presidency to Trump, and they got really pissed off at him for that. So they smacked him around to the DNC. He had a scar on his face. You can look at the video on YouTube. But what they've been doing, dude, is they've been hitting him, bombarding him with shit, dude. Like, they must be hitting him with X-rays and shit all day. He looks, you're right, 10 years older.
The legal stuff, too, you know.
They're getting his wife, man. I mean, she can't escape that.
You know what? They bought like a $700,000 home or some fucking bullshit.
Dude, here's the thing with Jane.
Oh my God, this guy brought a $700,000 home. He immediately sold out. It's like, good Lord, people.
Well, dude, the problem was that the wife, Jane, she was the chancellor or whatever at the college, and she bought the land from the diocese, and it was like $10 million loan, and it didn't even appraise it like a little over $1 million or some crap. I mean, it bankrupted this college, so it looks bad, dude, whenever the Catholic Church is involved in these land deals, and then they end up, you know, raking the tax, or not even the taxpayer at this point. It was literally like a bank. They're trying to take her for fraud, so trying to take her to court for fraud. I got to look that up, but it looks bad, man, and the more you dive into and delve into these people's lives, even if they are somebody like St. Bernie, it doesn't matter. They're all connected. They all use their power and their connections and their sphere of influence. Like maybe we all would. I don't know. Like maybe if me and you were the senator, we would do the same thing. I don't know.
You know, that's a good question. I mean, I actually think about that all the time. Because I'm constantly thinking about, you know, how I would act if I were in certain situations. And yeah, it's impossible to know. I think generally anyone is potentially corruptible in the right circumstances.
Survival is going to always corrupt anybody. So if you're on the verge, you're going to do what you need to do.
I mean, that's the thing. There's no virtue in going to Washington and trying to clean it up, because it's impossible. Which is why what's going on with Trump is also just such a strange, unbelievable story. I would have never expected Donald Trump to be the one to go to Washington and actually make a huge impact on the culture of corruption there.
He was handpicked. So, you know, I'll further refine my theory is that it's not just the military that wanted him, but they picked him. They chose him. And when I talk about military, I talk about conservative oligarchs too, like the Koch brothers, and people that have a direct investment in the.
Brothers were against Trump.
Maybe they are, but they have a direct investment, a direct reason for America to exist. You have to look at who owns what and who owns, you know, what where. And people that have physical investment in America don't want to see it go down either in war or economic collapse. They want to have a vibrant country. If a vibrant America consumes a fourth of the world's resources with only 1/25 of the population, but it continues to do so using gunboat diplomacy, to the people on the far right, that's okay. That's Pax Americana. So the people on the far left were globalist, communist, authoritarian. So that's basically what we have. We have extremist ideologies economically, especially.
I don't know if it's necessarily the far left that's been doing that, man. It's been a symbiotic merger of centrist left and centrist right with neoliberal economics and neoconservative foreign policy. I wouldn't call what's been going on communist.
Well, it had been.
Or leftist. I mean, everything that's everything that's happened since 9/11 was not leftist, dude.
Yeah, it was inevitably going to become that, though. When a one world policy and a one world authority takes over, they would dictate control of everything. That's the purest essence of communism.
We're not even close to a one government rule right now.
We were very close. We were much closer than people think. I don't think people understand how close nuclear war was. Still is.
A one world government isn't leftist. That's just straight totalitarianism.
No, it could be. It can be anything. And yes, it would be. It would be more leftist than anything.
Why would it be leftist? Just because it's a bigger...
Because the policies of the far left are beneficial to population reduction. Okay? That if you really truly look at the destruction of a nuclear family and the promotion of alternative lifestyles, that leads to population reduction naturally.
Because they want to give everyone money? Is that the idea?
No, because they want like 1 or 2 billion people, not 8, not 9, not 10. They want less and less people. They want to make it so that if you get married and have kids, you're a piece of shit. That's what they want society to think. That's the end game.
Why is that left? I don't.
That's because what I'm trying to tell you is that the destruction of the nuclear family is leftist, and the promotion of alternative lifestyles which don't lead to children is leftist. Conservative far right means have a bunch of kids, get married, have the nuclear family, like the Duggars.
Yeah, but either one of those can result in a totalitarian government.
Naturally. But what I was just saying is that the left was winning. The far leftists are destroying it in Europe. I mean, they're completely just obliterated the society.
I don't think I disagree.
I know you disagree. You live in Portland, dude.
but this is not. I mean, this is. I'm genuinely speechless that you think that what's been going on since 9/11 is a leftist policy. It was neoconservatives that started it, and then neoliberals that joined in. That's not that. These aren't leftists. This is a hybrid of a lot of different.
I don't see American policy as anything but international policy until the current president. I think the last 6 presidents have all been a globalist bent for the bankers that are international. Who it doesn't matter where you're born when you're of these blood families. It doesn't matter. There's no nations. There's only the family. That's the whole thing. That's all I'm trying to say. The bankers' families that ran everything and still do for by and large, except things are changing. They want no nations. They want no reproduction. They want no freedom for you. They want you to get chipped. They want you to be vaccinated so you can't reproduce and. But swallowing all those chemtrails and everything else, man. That's what they want.
What is leftist about that?
What is not leftist? The far left is communism. So why would a banker's paradise not be global communism, where they run the governments which have full control over all resources using a control grid, like a resource-based economy? That's what they want. They want to say
thinkers want communism and not capitalism.
Absolutely. Well, it's hyper capitalism at the top for the rich, because if you're in control of entire countries through shadow governments, you play with the biggest cards in the table. Everybody else plays with nothing. You control it all.
I mean, the bankers have been getting rich off of things like the IMF and countries being in debt to us, in debt to the World Bank, and in debt to the IMF. And that is. I mean, would you argue that's communistic? Because I don't think you can argue that's a communist policy.
Okay, so where's the when you think of the world, the strongest economy in the world, what is it right now?
Oh boy,
it's China. So China's a communist country, but it's a capitalist economy. Does that make sense? Do you see how 99.99999% of their wealth goes to the top 0.1111? Do you know that in China there's way more millionaires than in the U.S., but that comparatively to their population, it's minuscule. It's like nothing. And like people are either a millionaire over there or just dirt poor, but they have a huge middle class, but it's only comparative to their poor. When you have a communist system where the government controls everything, that's what the New World Order was going to be. The whole world was going to be China, and still could be. But I mean, you're talking about credit. You're talking about, what was that social credit system they just installed? They have surveillance watching everything all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's what they want for the whole world.
Article about their surveillance and artificial intelligence surveillance is just insane right now. I mean, it's beyond. I mean, I think they have an entire police station over there that's run by an artificial intelligence.
Yeah, but I mean, and it's weird to argue, but is China to the far left? Because, like, you don't have any religion at all, and you have the most alcohol and tobacco consumption by a massive, huge margin, because the people are fucking miserable, dude. Like,
yeah, I know. I mean, I understand what you're saying, bro. I guess when I think of
Russia's the far right.
His policies, I think of some of those European countries that are have good economic models that are working.
They're failing now. They're failing because they're the ones that had the vibrant economies are failing because they've been crushed by their own largesse with these massive influxes of immigrants that come in, and they of course want to help them, but they literally, like, France has 50 million people, and if they have 5 million immigrants come in, you can't expect the French citizen to take, 10, 15, 20% haircut to help people they don't even know who the hell they are. Like, it doesn't work. So, they're going bankrupt now. The countries that are keeping them out are not, like Hungary and Poland and Czechoslovakia and basically all of Eastern Europe. So, dude, and I'm just going to argue that Russia's the far right equivalent of China's far left, where you have ultra-nationalism and you have all the associated problems with that, including minority groups that are extremely ostracized and literally beaten to shit all the time. So
China is ultra-nationalist too.
They are, but it's their culture, not their country. You see, the Chinese people love being Chinese. It's not so much that they love the Chinese government.
But they're forced to adhere to the government.
Of course they are, yeah. They saw what
then between Russia and China. It makes me think that
it's iron fist either way. I don't know. I guess
I'm just trying to. Honestly, dude, I don't. Fucking 1,000 times more about world politics than I do. I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand why you think that because I don't particularly think that what's been going on is a true reflection of leftism. I think
there's a blending of it, but the overwhelming bent is just an authoritarianism. It's like weird. It's circular. You can go so far to the left, you come back around, and now you're into the far right, and they blend together because they're both extremists.
Right.
Meanwhile, vast majority of people are some form of centralist. Either they're true conservatives that that want to keep society intact and think it needs a little tweak here and there, or real progressives which think anybody who's being hurt, marginalized, or taken advantage of, there needs to be safeguards for those and nets that provide some safeguards against that. It's funny when you talk to people like individually how you'll probably agree 9 out of 10 times, and it's just when these huge groups follow these cult of personality idiots that they get xenophobic or bigoted or anything, dude, and it goes to both sides. I was at the DNC convention. I was just going to say I was at the DNC convention, and I heard racist comments than you could imagine coming out of people, and I was like, are we at the Democratic National Convention?
Yeah, well, so we have 15 minutes left, and I want to talk for a couple minutes about the new Patreon Steam It stuff. So let's get back into the memo here, because you have been following the QAnon stuff and the Follow the White Rabbit stuff pretty intensely, and so I want our listeners to, I know you can't summarize all of it, but to get a little bit of a feel for what we may be about to find out, so I'll just make this easy by just asking specific questions. The first of which is, how did Nunes actually acquire this information that he supposedly put in the memo?
They didn't tell. He has said he can't say it yet.
Yeah, that's what I thought. See, that's very bizarre to me.
Well, we'll see. Supposedly, they're going to release it tomorrow, supposedly. So we'll see.
This fairly lowly guy on an intel committee somehow has access to some of the most classified intelligence information. It seems weird that he would have had it. It sounds like basically it was an intelligence coup. It sounds like what they've done is unprecedented in terms of they all knew this shit was going on. They all knew it was fucked up, and it sounds like they just arbitrarily decided that because they have the majority right now, they're going to literally make the first deep state expose and throw the Democrats under the bus.
Well, maybe. A lot of people in the GOP are probably going to go down too, though. Or if anything, they've had the freaking good sense to just resign already. But, dude, all I can tell you is if Brennan doesn't like the memo coming out, it needs to come out. That's all I can say. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well,
so,
the majority doesn't want to. I'm for complete transparency. Not complete transparency. Obviously, some things have to be kept secret.
Guys like Adam Schiff don't want it to come out. To me, it's more telling who doesn't want it to come out,
Right. Pelosi and Schiff were having straight up nervous breakdowns on national television. It's not a joke. They're not posturing. All pretense of political acting was gone from Pelosi when she was being interviewed on air. I have never seen a politician act the way she was acting. She looked like she had seen a demon. She looked like a demon had done bad things to her before that interview. And she was very feisty and bitchy. And it sounded like someone who just found out they're about to lose their job. And I'm not saying that she's going to lose her job, because she's probably not going to be personally mentioned in a memo. But if it's as bad as they're saying it is, the Dems ain't taking back to the House in 2018.
The problem is that it spills into everything, and it's so this Maxine Waters deal now, I don't know if you read about this memo that came out from her where they're saying it's fake, but supposedly she was involved in some deal where they were going to send 41,000 Somalian refugees. Instead of sending them here, where I'm at, they were going to send them down to her district, and she was going to have a developer build some massive new neighborhood for them, and the Fed was guaranteeing they were going to pay it. And it was just no. Like, did you ask your constituents if that's okay to take their tax dollars to build this massive thing for a bunch of people that, you know, they didn't ask. They didn't ask they don't ask up here. They don't ask anywhere. And that's the whole problem. That's the biggest problem going on. It's not just the Democrats. There's people in the GOP too. But there's a ton of people that are totally not beholden to their constituents. They don't ever tell them what they're doing. They never ask them.
It's the legacy of Obama that could be heavily damaged here, and that's really about the last thing the Democrats have going for them right now, is they have one of the most popular politicians of all time, holding the reins of their party. And if something happens to him, they don't really have a lot left. I mean, really, for a party that was saying that the Republicans were going to be the ones crumbling, when Trump was running, it's pretty remarkable how much it's shifted here. And but I'll be honest, man, I'm surprised. I was expecting you to sound a little bit more like excited and jubilant about this thing being released. Instead, you sound a little bit apprehensive. Or do you think maybe that this is a little bit of a misdirection or something?
No, it's just you see shit like that retreat train thing where they try to derail it, and these people are getting super desperate, dude.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm right here at the Super Bowl. I mean, you're in a huge city. Nick's in a huge city. These people, if it's between
false flag coming up. Yeah.
Well, think about it, dude. If you're one of a couple million people that are attached to these families that have run things forever, for thousands of years, maybe their descendants or whatever, and the lid's going to get blown off because maybe it is because of something stupid, like you said, something partisan, like two completely fake-ass Disneyland political parties, and this guy gets in like Trump that gives them this window to just take out all their political enemies, and it ends up taking down everything all over, and they just shit up everything. And that may be what's going on. And with the blessings of the military, because guess what happens when things get tough? People with the money and the weapons have a fight every time. And the people with the weapons win almost every time. I don't care how rich you are. If your little pet bodyguards are against a bunch of, I don't know, say Marines, I don't think they're going to win. Call me crazy. I just feel like dudes that kill people for a living are probably more adept at killing than guys that guard people for a living. That's just my thought. So anybody can be gotten. And I think we're going to have an economic reset, and I think they're going to come out and say, we put in Donald. Donald's going to renegotiate our debts around the world. We're going to close about half the bases or more. We're going to only keep the ones that make real sense, not any of these lily pad bullshit bases everywhere. And we're gonna reinvest, I don't know, a quadrillion dollars into the U.S. because that's what's been stolen over the last 60 years.
But surely you don't actually think that the military cabal is going to come out and directly say that we fomented a political coup so that Donald Trump could redistribute wealth? I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, what's the alternative, though? I mean, that's the problem I have right now.
Well, I mean, that's what is so interesting about this moment is that we're about to learn. I mean, this from the sound of it, this is going to be a lot heavier than just the government's been spying on its citizens to try and protect us from terrorists. This sounds like a specific person used very specific surveillance tools as a political weapon. Okay, so now, but once you start opening this stuff up, then you start getting different retribution. And it becomes this cycle of retribution. And once some people start talking, once some people are forced to start talking, it opens up other doors. And once those doors are open, people find other doors. And so, I think that's what you were trying to say is that...
it's called breadcrumbs. That's what it is. So you follow them until you get to a sandwich, and then when you eat it, you find out it's full of red pills, and you just never go back.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody has that sandwich moment. I mean, whatever it may be. Mine was reading NDAA 2012 and being paranoid and thinking people were watching me and they could just come kill me and get me anytime. Not even realizing that could have happened any day ever since 1940 when they had some kind of like Foreign Alien Sedition Act because of the World War II was starting and they wanted a legal reason to intern all the Japanese and all the Italians and all the Germans and conscript all the black men from the South and force them to fight and all those cool things they did. And they never rescinded them and they never took them back.
You know what's interesting about the 2012 NDAA, since you mentioned it, is that was a year that Obama legalized the use of propaganda by the government on the people. It was
super obvious, too.
Not formally legal before that, and now, and look at what we've, it's just so nuts. And you know, look, Obama he gets hated on a lot and he gets loved a lot. But the reality is he set the stage for, he continued all the same policies that Bush did. And he did it under the auspices of being like a hope and change candidate, and he was not. And so it's such an incredible irony that we get this guy coming in that half the population thinks is the devil, and he could be more about transparency than Obama. It's just nuts. It's crazy. But, okay. So I was talking earlier, everyone heard about, how anti-medias got hit by this Facebook algorithm. And, it hit pretty hard. And basically what Facebook is doing is they took out all of the publisher pages from your newsfeed. So you're basically not going to be getting articles from the anti-media in your newsfeed anymore. And of course, the reasons for this, we could talk about it all day. We've already been talking about it a bunch, but in my opinion, it basically boils down to Facebook got a lot of shit over the fake news thing, over Clinton losing the election, and the government has just been hammering them and Google and Twitter and all of them. And so finally, Mark Zuckerberg was fine. All right, we're gonna take out all news from the platform, and it's absurd because there's companies that have been building their following for years, and it's just very, very unfair to suddenly do this. But nonetheless, they have done it. So basically, what we need anti-media followers to do is to migrate with us to a new platform. Now, you can stay on Facebook because we're still going to be on Facebook. Anti-media will still be on Facebook. But for business purposes, we have to generate revenue so that we can pay our staff and whatnot. And we're not going to be getting the advertising money that we used to because all of our traffic came from Facebook. So we're going to go to Steemit. And Steemit is a decentralized, blockchain-based social network that we've talked about a lot. It's very cool. I was already on there. It's definitely not easy to figure out and use in terms of the monetization part of it. But I personally think for those of us who think like we think here, which is if you're open-minded and you think about the bigger picture and you consider yourself, quote unquote woke or whatever word you want to use for that. Do you want to be sharing your thoughts and dreams and your soul on a platform that data mines you and commercializes and monetizes your thoughts, sells you out to the government, and you don't get anything in return for it? Or would you rather be on a platform where everything is strictly encrypted, meaning, well, not encrypted, but your information is not being data mined and sold to larger entities, and your posts generate revenue through a cryptocurrency called Steem? Now, I kind of sound like I'm advertising right now, really what I'm saying is that our contributions to a conversation should be part of a much larger community, I think. And we should be reaching out beyond our little echo chambers, and we should be trying to form alliances with different people and different groups, and actually trying to make stuff, create stuff, and change things. And we need to be on a platform in which we can do that with a certain, sincerity, where we're not contradicting ourselves and where we're not feeding some giant beast just to get our message across. I'll have more to say on this. I'm not articulating this very well right now, but my point is we need you to get on Steemit so that you can start following us on there. And if you can now make a contribution to us through our Patreon account, it would help. Anti-Media has about 2 million followers on Facebook. If even a small fraction of them gave a few dollars, that'd be all we need to continue operating. And that's all we want, is to keep operating so that we can keep bringing you weird news, good news about the world.
Look for the ICO soon. 50 cents a coin.
Yeah, what ICO?
The Anti-Media coin.
That'd be fantastic. God, that'd be fun. Yeah, unfortunately, the crypto market is kind of in the shitter right now, but, it had gone sky high, and every financial institute on the planet decided to conspire to bring it back down, and so they got their way. But
well, you can't keep a good thing down, so I'd hold on to them unless you actually need them.
Hold on, because the blockchain is here to stay, and blockchain projects are the future.
And remember, these legacy coins are like getting premium stocks. So just think about it like that.
Yeah, great time to buy crypto. Great time to follow Anti-Media onto Steemit. And look for the memo tomorrow, people. It should be interesting. It should be fun. All right, thanks, T. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.